And thank you for joining us for our December webinar. We're just going to wait a couple minutes to give people time to get on, and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. While you wait, please take this opportunity to do a short poll on how many webinars you've attended. All right. Thank you so much for taking our poll. It looks like for the majority of people, this is either the very first or one of the very first webinars they've attended. We definitely hope to see you at many more. Tonight, your host from the Field Impact team will be Linda Nguyen, Team Coordinator, Jenny Butchermini, Teacher Engagement Manager, and myself, Fan Project Manager. Sandra Birdie and Johnny Funner could not join us tonight, but we know they are somewhere listening avidly. This month's guest, Amanda Vitello, District Digital Project Manager, Tara Warren, California Craftskit, and Tamara Gloucester, Connecticut Craftskit, will be joining us to talk about tackling common math issues using Achieve the Core.
So we'd like to share a little bit more about who core advocates are. Core advocates are teachers from all over the country who believe in the potential of high-quality standards and the importance of all students being prepared for college and careers. They support their colleagues in understanding and advocating for the standards and embrace the shifts in instruction. The Core Advocate Network is over 10,000 educators strong, and we'd love for you to join us if you haven't already. Next slide, please. Great. So if you would like to learn more about the Core Advocate Network, you can go ahead and email Jenny or Joni. Their emails are provided here. We also want to invite you to join the network by signing up at achievethecore.org/ca-sign up and visit our website for more information and opportunities there.
We are avid tweeters, and we hope that you'll join us online tweeting about the webinar. Feel free to use our handle, #CoreAdvocates, and you can also tweet at Achieve the Core, at Jenny Beltro, and at TI Dub. Engage with us. During the webinar, you'll have access to handouts as you've already question introduction, where you can type in your free-form answer, and polling like the one we just took. After the webinar, we'll ask you to complete a follow-up survey so that we can continue to get better at our webinars, and you'll have access to the recorded webinar, handouts, and PowerPoint presentation.
We have three main goals for our webinar tonight. They are to understand how to find what you need on achievethecore.org, explore Achieve the Core resources you can use to build knowledge, share with groups, or use in your classroom. And lastly, hear from educators using Achieve the Core tools and resources to improve their math instruction.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda and Janelle. This is Amanda Vitello, and I'm going to be walking you through the first portion of our webinar this evening. We're calling it Tour de Core, and just to help us understand, all of you, we'd love to know how frequently you use achievethecore.org. So if you would just take a quick second and complete the poll here, it'll really help us to, talk to your needs. So let's just give it another few seconds. Okay. Oh, great. So I see here that we have a wide range of responses here, which is exciting. I see some folks who have never been to achievethecore.org before, and some who use it daily. So we've got quite the bell curve here. What we're going to do today is start off just by walking you through how the site is organized, so that you can really easily go to the correct section when you do go to the site. Now, today on the webinar, I'd love for you all to stay here with me and not go explore the site as we talk this evening. I know it's going to be tempting to open up another window on your browser and go look around, but hold off until after this evening's webinar. And then we strongly encourage you to go to achievethecore.org, explore the site, create an account, and find some resources that you can use tomorrow. Everything that you'll find on Achieve the Core is completely free. It's completely open source for you to access, use, share with other educators in whatever way you see as most helpful for you. Now, as you go to Achieve the Core, you will notice that there are three main ways to navigate the site: professional learning, planning and reflection, and classroom resources. Each of these sections has a specific purpose in terms of use. The resources that are found in the professional learning section are going to help educators really learn more about the shifts and college and career ready standards. And it's going to provide a lot of the background knowledge that will be helpful as you move forward. And a lot of these resources can be used on your own or in groups, either in professional development settings or within a PLC. The Planning and Reflection section provides tools and resources so that educators can be better able to plan for instruction or reflect back on previous instruction. You'll also find in that section titled Alignment Rubric and Textbook Adaptations, resources for finding aligned materials, and also resources for adapting the materials that you already have. And in the final section, the Classroom Resources section, you're going to find resources that are more the grab and go, lesson plans, math tasks, resources that you can download and use tomorrow in your class. That you love and you want to come back to, we encourage you to favorite resources. You can see that you can favorite or share them, and you'll find these favorited items in your account. Now, to create an account is really easy. The only reason that we have an account, we never sell any of your information. We never share it with anybody. The only reason we have the account is so that you can favorite and access resources that you love. Again, everything is free, so our goal is simply to make our resources easily accessible to you. There is one note. If you do complete the Core Advocates survey that Linda and Janelle mentioned earlier, in that process, you will already have an account for Achieve the Core. So now that we understand the general structure of the site and where to go to find resources for your own professional learning, resources for planning and reflection, and resources for the classroom, let's dive into the math content that I know we want to talk about. Now, we talk to educators all the time. We're in classrooms all the time, and there are some common issues that we know you all have to address in your math classrooms. These are some of the issues that we frequently hear. That teachers are struggling with creating a coherent math classroom and the instruction in the classroom, meaning the connections within the grade and then also the connections vertically across grades. We hear that teachers are wanting to learn more about how to create focus in the math classroom. A lot of teachers are working with resources that maybe are not designed specifically for the standards and maybe don't spend the right proportion of time on the major work of the grade. We also hear that a lot of folks are using PLCs in really innovative ways and that they're really hungry for resources to integrate the standards into professional learning communities. We still, even though there are better resources out in the field, do hear from a lot of educators who are working with curricula and resources that are, several to many years old and are not perfectly aligned. And finally, the other common issue that we hear math teachers dealing with is really understanding the concept of rigor in the math classroom. Whether a standard is addressing conceptual understanding, procedural skill and fluency, or application, and how to really translate that into the classroom. So these are some of the common ones that we are going to talk through this evening a little bit and share some resources. And you'll notice in the handout we've provided lots of links to resources on Achieve the Core. But we'd really love to hear from you. What are some of the challenges or issues or concerns that you have as a math teacher? Do any of these topics that we hear from other educators resonate with you. So we'd love to hear from you in the chat box. So use the questions tab on your control panel to respond. What are some of the challenges that you experience as a math teacher? All right, I see a lot of responses coming in, getting to the depth of the question, or the depth of the standard, rather. Oh, someone asked just to repeat what the aspects of rigor are in the math standards. There's conceptual understanding, there's procedural skill and fluency, and then there's application. And often the standards will name which aspect of rigor is appropriate for that particular grade level, and you'll find that they build off one another. So often a standard, you know, in a younger grade will start with conceptual understanding, build towards fluency and procedural skill in the following grade, and then build towards application in future grades. Yes, I'm seeing lots of imperfect textbooks dealing with imperfect materials. You know, addressing all students' needs is a big one. Struggling with grade level, being able to teach grade level math. Wow, you guys have been amazing at responding, and I certainly can't read all of these and respond to all of them, but we really appreciate you taking the time to let us know which issues have really resonated with you. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to be able to address all of these issues this evening, and we really do encourage you to explore Achieve the Core to find resources that will support you in your specific issue. So what we are going to spend some time diving into is just taking one example from some of those common issues that we saw, or that we hear from educators, and we're going to dive into designing coherent math instruction. Again, if you have one of the other common issues, and I see that there are lots of folks who did, you know, who those issues resonated with, the handout has very specific resources to go explore. So I encourage you to do that. So now, depending on how you learn best, Achieve the Core has a wide variety of resources to really dive deeply into a given topic. Our first set of resources are going to help you grow your own knowledge of a topic, either on your own or with a group. So let's take an imaginary school that I think is representative of a lot of teachers that we've spoken with. And let's imagine that the PLC in this particular school is multi-grade. So, you know, grades 3, 4, 5 meeting together, and they've decided that they want to focus on vertical alignment, so coherence across the grades. Let's imagine that some of the students at the older grades are coming to those older grades without having mastered the standards of the previous grade. And within your PLC, you've decided to address this issue. So one approach that you could use, and one way that you could use some of the resources on Achieve the Core, is to use sort of a flipped learning model, which I know a lot of schools are exploring now, and have all of the teachers watch one or both of these webinars. The first one is focused on using a resource called the Coherence Map, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. And the other is a webinar focusing on supporting all learners in working with grade level mathematics. And so everyone can watch that, you know, during all your free time that I know you all have. And then in your PLC, come together and discuss what you watched and how you could use the resources that were discussed in those two webinars to better align instruction vertically. And if we continue with this idea of the PLC really exploring vertical alignment and the importance of teaching grade level standards, you could together read an article called "The Structure is the Standards." Now, this essay is written by 3 of the lead writers of the Common Core State Standards for Mathematics, Phil Darrow, William McCollum, and Jason Zimba. And it describes the importance of the structures of the standards, and it really cautions against fragmenting them or taking them out of context because they do build on one another. So if all of the teachers within a school read this very short article, it's a few pages, and think about and discuss at the PLC the implications of the article for your school, for your teaching experience, and for the experience of your students. It can start to help provide a common language for all of the teachers in a given school. Another really great resource for building knowledge and just sharing what other educators are doing is our Aligned blog. We have educators from across the country who write about how they've addressed this particular concern in their school or their district. There are 3 particular blog posts that we've highlighted here for you all this evening, but there's lots more there, so we encourage you to go. The first one is creating a coherent math curriculum, and this blog post discusses how the coherence map, again, a resource I'm going to talk about in a second, can help you uncover gaps in understanding and find resources to supplement your instructional materials. The next is navigating the spiral in mathematics textbooks. So a classroom teacher and a curriculum coordinator describe how they use the spiral design of their textbook to help them focus on creating coherent instruction. And the final blog post that we've highlighted for you this evening is Forming a United Whole, the Coherence Map. And a K-12 STEM district supervisor explains how he used the Coherence Map to improve his district's math curriculum and to make it more coherent within and across grades. And this is another way that if we take our imaginary school and our PLC group, it's a way to spark ideas and spark conversation and build knowledge together. Now, if we continue our thread of this PLC group, really focusing on vertical alignment of math instruction, we have a great math activity, and I'd love for you, if you've done the coherence card activity, it's often said as in shorthand, I'd love for you just in the chat box to go ahead and type a yes, or I have, or I've led it, or I've participated. This activity is one where participants are provided, and this is best done in a group. Participants are provided individual standards on a note card, and there are multiple standards within a domain across grades. And the participants need to identify the grade level that each standard belongs within, and then also, so they start to see the progression very visually of how the standards are connected across grades. And you see the impact of potential of not teaching a standard in a given grade, because you see how there are times when a standard that is in 4th grade is then picked back up again in 7th grade. And if a student hasn't had that exposure, they're going to come to 7th grade with a learning gap. So it's a very powerful activity. You can find it under professional learning and professional development and in understanding the shifts. So you see the little breadcrumb there. And again, in the handout, we have a direct link. And the activity is going to be the coherence card activity there. So now let's say you've done a bunch of learning with the educators in your school, and now you're ready to really plan together. And so you break into your grade level groups, and you decide that you want to address the standards within the grade, and so you're going to plan with your grade level group. A great resource for common planning is called the Lesson Planning Tool, and you see the URL here. It's found on Achieve the Core under the Planning and Reflection navigation. And it's a resource that provides guiding questions and supports to help teachers create lessons that are aligned to the shifts. There is a specific module, and you can see it here, that focuses on creating coherent connections within the lesson as well as across grades. You know, I know some schools are engaging in these sort of Japanese lesson study type activities and planning together with peers, and this is a great resource to be able to do that. And then finally, I know I've referenced the coherence map a few times. As your grade or your school starts to pull together either a scope and sequence or considering how to position standards so that students and other educators can see how they are connected, the coherence map can be a really powerful tool for that. It illustrates what is innate in the structure of the standards, which is the connections within a grade and across grades. And for most standards, there are related tasks, there are sample assessment items from PARC and Smarter Balanced, and there's other supportive material like excerpts from the progression documents available to help educators understand the standards more deeply. And it visually shows those connections between the standards. So these are all resources that you can use, you know, to help build knowledge, to share with other teachers, and to get resources for your classroom. I'd love for you, as we start to transition and talk to some of our educators who are going to share how they've used some resources from Achieve the Core, is there one specific tool that was mentioned about creating a coherent math instruction that you think would be really helpful in your setting? And you can go ahead and use the questions tab on your control panel to respond. Great.
Awesome. Jenny or Amanda, do you see any amazing uses?
I'm seeing lots of people talk about the coherence map and how they already use it in their daily practice or plan to check it out. And several other people are mentioning the lesson planning tool and how helpful it is to use with teachers and in collaborative settings and in PLCs. So those are the two that I'm seeing most frequently in the question tab are the coherence map and the lesson planning tool. So thank you everyone for sharing, and we'll talk with you more at the end of the webinar tonight about how you can let us know even more about how you're using these tools and your instructional advocacy around them.
Thanks. So we definitely want to hear from teachers and educators who are actually tackling these issues in their classroom. And first up, we have Tara Warren. She is a teacher in West Coast from Santa Monica, California. Tara, we're so happy to have you tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Warren, and just giving you a little bit of information about myself. I am a current teacher and math instructional coach in the Santa Monica Malibu School District in Santa Monica, California. And I'm really excited to join you today just to kind of share who I am and how I use these tools in my classroom and in my school district. As it relates to this webinar, I have 15 years in education, And 11 of my years, I started out in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then my last 4 years are here in Santa Monica, California. As a teacher and a math instructional coach, my tool belt was pretty full when I left Cincinnati, just really diving into the standards and getting the understanding of what the standards are, how we can use them in our school, how they best suit the students, making sure that they're developmentally appropriate, and how we can make that work. So when I moved to California, there was some tasks that I had to think about as I moved. So I moved here to California, again, 4 years ago, and in my new district, it was a little different than where I was working before. And so it brought a whole different set of challenges for me when I moved to my new school district. One of the things that I found was kids are kids, students are students no matter where you go, but some of the issues you have to tackle may be a little bit different based on who you're in front of every day, who your clients are. So as I got to my new district, one of the things I found was that the level of understanding with some of the students, a lot of the students in particular, they were higher achieving. So it was a difference of comfortability in allowing students to be able to work at their own pace. And what I found is that across the district and across different classrooms was that we were so comfortable with the students just knowing at the skill level that we could push them on to fun things, right? So kind of like back before the standards were big, we could do the fun stuff in the classroom, and it was fun. But then we had to kind of think about, is this what we're supposed to be teaching? So at the school level, having conversation with my principal, having conversation with district lead, how can we make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to do at our grade level? Because really we were missing focus. So one of the first things that we did was we talked about, what's going on in our school, how can I help, and then just focusing in on those pieces that we needed to get each of our grade levels to see. So what we started with was the focus document from Achieve the Core, and just the ability to have something tangible in our hands to say, if this is what I have to teach, I need to make sure this is taught and not just covered, but taught well. So the depth of it all. And that brought a different level of like, oh, I can feel good that I don't have to teach coordinate planes in second grade. Some people didn't like that. Some of our teachers were like, well, I like teaching coordinate planes, but just the understanding of here's the focus at second grade, let's teach this really well so that when they get to fifth grade, that's something that they can do in fifth grade and they can teach that really well in fifth grade. So not having to muddy the waters across different grade levels, but having this really nice focus document, K to 5, to say, okay, if I concentrate on this and get them really good with this, what's the next step? So that's where we first started, was with the focus piece. Our next step was to look at vertical alignment. So now we know where to focus at each grade level, and we were comfortable with that and getting new materials in school. We had a new curriculum come in, our new resources for teaching, and we were like, well, if this is our focus, now we can think about how we can use this in PLCs to be able to bridge the gap across grade level. So if I know that I'm teaching fractions in third grade, how much do I need to do so that I'm making sure that they're ready for fractions in fourth grade? And that's where, at that point, we looked at what does that vertical alignment look like? And one of the tools that we used for that was the Coherence map. That was really good for us at our school. So we had these really big pieces, these really big tangible pieces that if we can focus our work here using this focus document and then add it on and figuring out where we're supposed to be at our grade level, how can we make sure that we get that same band across vertically to make sure our students are learning what they need to learn, and to the extent that they need to know it, all the way through our school and all the way through our district. So that's really how we've used our tools, and it's been really successful for us at the district and at the school level.
Thanks, Tara. So happy to hear it. Next up, we're going to hear from Tamara Goster, Assistant Director of CREC, Teaching and Learning, Hartford, Connecticut. Tamara, we're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Janelle. Good evening, everyone. A little background. I'm a Connecticut educator for almost 20 years as a secondary math teacher, a district math coach, and an administrator for a professional development provider. And we all know that classroom teachers are held accountable for student success of academic growth and outcomes and achievement. So here is something that happened to me. I was talking with a group of teachers, and one of them shared their feedback from their administrator saying the lesson was not rigorous enough. And unfortunately for this teacher, they didn't know what that meant. This left the teacher frustrated because they didn't get specific feedback and confused with so many questions. For instance, like, how come my lesson was not rigorous enough? What does rigor mean? How do I plan for rigorous instruction? And what does it look like? To what instructional opportunities should I have? How do I know I'm doing it right? I was implementing the standards, but what should I be doing differently? Or what about my students? How should they be thinking, and how should they be engaging in the learning? My students are completing their work, so what are students expected to be doing, and so on. So add to this scenario, generally speaking, of course, most administrators lack the necessary background to provide specific and meaningful feedback resulting in teacher action to improve their practice. And consequently, the administrator's stance remains as evaluator, never moving along that continuum of supervision to coach or collaborator. So as a result of the teacher telling me this, I recommended this great tool. And the tool that I'm going to show you, of course, none other than the Instructional Practice Guide called the IPG, which is really awesome. The IPG is available for math for all grades, K to the high school. The one I'm showing you now is Math K-8, and there is one for high school, of course. And the IPG is both in digital form as well as in print. And it allows for the teachers to see all at once the dynamics of a rigorous lesson. So, for example, planning to reflect the shifts, the instructional practices for students to learn the content, and opportunities for students to exhibit the math practices. The IPG supports designing coherent math instruction consisting of sets of questions that guide teachers through a planning that exhibits the shift, and two, creating focus in the math classroom in addressing the elements of rigor in your math classroom. This tool helps teachers to consider the standards and/or clusters they've chosen to target, the learning goals for the students, the problems students will engage with, discussions about the mathematics of the lesson, using examples and representations to make the mathematics explicit, and the self-reflection and analysis of their practice of teaching through individual lessons or even a series of lessons. Teachers can focus their work and develop specific practices critical for implementation of the Common Core, just to name a few. Basically, this tool really helps teachers to know what rigorous instruction looks like, what teachers should be doing, and then what students should be doing. This tool compiles everything into one document that teachers can share in their PLCs or department meetings, and of course, with their administrator. This teacher can share with the administrator their planning for what is important, math-specific instructional strategies, and the standards for mathematical practices and student outcomes, whereas the administrator can look at the tool and the lesson, discuss observational evidence collected, and use the tool to provide math-specific, purposeful, and meaningful feedback to the teacher to improve teacher practice. It creates a great opportunity for the teacher as well as the administrator, giving the administrator the opportunity to coach and collaborate with the teacher to improve the teacher's practice. This tool removes the guesswork, targets the focus, and really grounds the conversation. I can't say enough about the benefits of this tool.
Thank you, Tamara. We'd love to give our audience the opportunity to ask questions to Amanda, to Tara, Tamara about anything they said here tonight. If you have a question, please be sure to type it into the question box located on your control panel.
I will start with a question that's probably best for Amanda. One question came in, is there an IPG resource at Achieve the Core? So Amanda, maybe you could talk about the different IPT suite or IPG suite of tools that are available at Achieve the Core.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go back and Janelle, I don't know if you can go back to the screen that has the navigation for the planning and reflection for Achieve the Core. But in that section, planning and reflection, there's a whole section dedicated to the instructional practice, and you'll find there links to the instructional practice guide coaching tool, which is the IPG. You'll also find links to the lesson planning tool, and you'll find our most recent edition, which is called the Instructional Practice Toolkit. And what that is a full like professional learning experience. It takes a full 360 approach to classroom observations, from the lesson planning to viewing a video and providing feedback using the instructional practice guide to analyzing student work. And then there's a suite of classroom videos that are available to you. So you could do this full training first to really understand the IPG together with your group, and then go and implement. Now, the instructional practice guide, the coaching tool, is available either in print or in digital format. So you can, take notes online and share that feedback with a fellow teacher.
Great, thank you, Amanda. There was a couple of questions that I think would be great for Tara to answer, given your student population that you teach, Tara. But any resources that you would suggest when teachers are asked to go deeper within a standard and not move on to the next grade level, to help teachers understand that, or to work with students around going deeper?
So one of the tools that I think that I really use a lot, like I said, was the focus document, to think about what actually does it look like when we're focused on what's supposed to be going on in each particular grade. But I also really took into account looking at the coherence map, because what I found was, and what we found as a team, because we did a lot of this work as PLCs, and we found that there are some in-between things that you have to be able to get your students to understand so that they're able to attend to the next grade level. So you not just looking at what I need to teach at 4th or 5th grade level, but what is the ask at 6th grade, so that I can prepare my 4th or 5th graders to go to that next level when they get there. So are there some pieces intermediately that I can help my students to understand really well that will help them when they make that next jump into that next grade level? So that coherence map was really good for that, because one of the things also you find, and I think Amanda touched on this earlier, was that some things that if you don't attend to, like in 4th grade, and it doesn't come back up until 7th, you don't see that there's a missing piece. But imagine as a 4th grade teacher, you know that that's not going to come back again until 7th, how well you're going to make sure they have concrete understanding before they leave your grade level. So just thinking about that coherence map of like, what's the next step and how much can I do to prepare them for that next step?
Great. And Amanda, I'm going to throw a question back at you again. Somebody was asking about a short PLC activity around focus, and it made me think of maybe talking a little bit more about the various professional learning resources that are available on Achieve the Core.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So within our the professional learning section on Achieve the Core, we have a whole suite of professional development sessions that could be done, and any of the activities within those sessions could be pulled out. I would, if you're looking specifically for focus, I would look under the card. If you go to the page, it looks like little cards for understanding the shifts, and there is an introduction to the math shifts, and then there's a deep dive into the math shifts. And each of those has an activity focus, for each of the major shifts within mathematics. So you could pull out just a short activity for focus to do with a PLC from there.
Great. And a question for Tamara, another kind of digging deeper into the IPG. Somebody was wondering, Tamara, about how a teacher might introduce a tool like that to their administrator if they see it and they think it might be useful for administrators to use, or even instructional coaches to use. How might they go about introducing that tool to other colleagues that they're building?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I think when it comes to introducing the IPG to their colleagues, that can be shared during their PLC meeting or even during the data team meetings. Oftentimes, when teachers are looking at their benchmarks or they're in the progress monitoring phase of looking at their assessment and student results, they begin to, formalize their goal and then beginning to look at, well, what are my instructional practices that I should be doing and should be looking at? And that is a great way to then introduce the tool and say, hey, here's how I'm planning, here's what I'm doing in my classroom. In most cases, the administrator is typically in those meetings, but if not, or if this is just something that the teacher plans to do on their own, they should feel more than comfortable to just say, hey, do you mind telling their administrator, hey, do you mind coming to my classroom? I want to show you what I'm working on. I want to show you this great tool that I'm working on, and it's really giving me some insight in terms of how to plan, how to provide instruction, and then what are my look-fors in terms of when I'm looking at students.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate every question submitted and every answer given. We are going to go ahead and move on to talking about the network.
Thanks, Janelle. So if folks found tonight's webinar helpful, we'd like to invite you to join our Core Advocate Network. The Field Impact team is committed to solving real problems that real teachers have, and we know the best way to do this is to know what folks are experiencing. So we'd love to learn more about who you are, where you work, the types of things you're interested in, and the expertise you may already have. This way we'll be able to tailor our webinars and other opportunities to fit your needs and interests. And we might even tap you to be our next webinar panelist. So we definitely encourage you to join the network by filling out this survey completely at achievethecore.org/CA-sign-up. We also want to invite core advocates to share what they're doing more broadly, whether it's trying a new strategy or a tool that you were introduced to on this webinar. We'd like to know how it went. So please let us know about your instructional advocacy with the Instructional Advocacy Action Form. You can use this link to fill that out.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and please join us again for using Achieve the Core to tackle common ELA issues. This webinar will be on January 10th, owing to the upcoming new year, but the time will remain the same at 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The link here, you can use to be registered, but you can also find the link on Achieve the Core, and when you receive the link to this deck, you will be able to access this link. Well, thank you very much for an informative and rich webinar. We definitely hope to see you next month. Thank you.